Hey guys, Johnny from Ignite here. Thanks for tuning in again. And today I'm going to take you through a video on the Tempest and Hag-Seed. That is the Module A textual conversations study. And if you're studying it, I want to go into look at the particular comparison between the characters of Prospero and Felix. Prospero is the protagonist in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. That was produced around 1610, 1611. Felix is meant to be the modern day adaptation or the embodiment of Prospero in Atwood's 2016 context. So Felix is supposed to be the modern day Prospero, but when I say supposed to be, that is because she is paying tribute to the play in her novel Hag-Seed, but she's also making innovations and changing a few things which is going to affect the way that we actually understand Prospero back in the play. Remember that idea of intertextuality. If you haven't watched that, watch that video now. When we look at Felix, when we look at the modern day Atwood version of Prospero in Hag-Seed, that's going to inevitably change the way we view Prospero in Shakespeare's play. So, what are some of these key comparisons? What's changed? Why? What do we get out of it? What's the effect? So what? Let's look at a few of these questions, and I'm going to do it by looking at about 3 examples of things that are slightly different, but that still resonate across both characters. And if you're familiar with that rubric, we are interested in resonances, similarities, and dissonances, differences. So before we look at those examples, let's quickly look at what Atwood's perspective was on Prospero when she decided to write it. This is from an article in The Guardian, which is the newspaper article which you can find online. It was written in 2016 after the publication of Hag-Seed, and I think it's incredibly valuable to read for all of you out there. So this is plucked from there, which I think is going to be very helpful, but I would strongly recommend reading that yourself. So, you might also call him a usurper. She's talking about Prospero because she's going to have to recreate his character in the novel, because that's the modern day tribute to the Tempest. He's stolen the island from Caliban, just as his own brother has stolen the dukedom from him. And you might call him a sorcerer, as Caliban also terms him, because we know he uses his magic to control the island. We, the audience, are inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt and to see him as a benevolent despot. That's how Atwood is taking it. She believes that we'll be more forgiving as an audience to his character, and we won't view him as that controlling, patriarchal tyrant that so many people do in the literature out there on The Tempest. Now, you might view him as a tyrant in some ways, and I think it's hard not to, but overall, her take is that Shakespeare has framed his character in a way where we are actually giving him the benefit of the doubt. Okay? We are inclined most of the time, she says, and that just touches upon the fact that Prospero's character is certainly complex. There are moments in time where we really do question whether he is a good person, whether we can really empathize with his actions. But nevertheless, this is very important because Atwood has said that Shakespeare's giving him the benefit of the doubt, so she's going to find a way to give Felix, her Prospero, the benefit of the doubt in the novel. This is so key, what I'm about to say. How does she do that? Think about how the novel is written using third-person limited narration. That means that it's not written from the perspective of Felix, who is Prospero. It doesn't say, I did this, I do this. It says he, it's distanced, but it nevertheless biases his perspective and is constantly giving us insight into his actual thoughts. It's not giving us the insights into other characters' thoughts, it's biased towards him. So this idea of the benefit of the doubt that Shakespeare gives to Prospero in the play, or at least that Atwood reads into it, she's translated that favorable perspective into a literally favorable narrative perspective through the third-person limited narration. Think about that. That's a very nuanced point that you could make in an essay that would certainly impress a marker. So, what else has happened? She's also given him a very humanized characterization in the novel. You'll notice that when she recounts what's going on with Felix, we can't help but sympathize with his situation. Now, how does she humanize his character? She actually changes and innovates a little with his backstory. We actually see the drama unfold where he's betrayed. She gives us more of that context that we don't see in the play. In the play, we're introduced straight away to the island and the shipwreck happening. That is all part of Prospero's revenge. But in the novel, we don't see the revenge happen straight away. Rather, we see the tragedy that occurs to Felix. His wife has died, and Miranda has died at the age of 3. She didn't die in the Tempest. She was alive. She grew up on the island. It was at 3 that Miranda and Prospero were exiled to the island. Whereas in the novel, Miranda has died at 3. She didn't make it to the island, but in a way she did. And the way she makes it to the island is she makes it to the island of Felix's mind. She is exiled into Felix's delusion because Miranda still is seen throughout the narrative because he is delusional and can't let her go. And we're seeing it play out in this psychological way, whereas when we think back to the Tempest, Prospero has to let her go to be betrothed to Ferdinand. But that's a far different way that's occurring with that letting go, with that relinquishing of control of his daughter. One way is about a marital ceremony going on and letting his daughter go and letting go of that patriarchal control that he has. And then in the modern day context in the novel, it's about Felix letting go of Miranda's memory so that he can move on with life. It's a very nuanced take on the difference there. Another thing that will get you some bonus points in your responses. Okay, so there are a couple of key ways that are helping Atwood achieve this, but let's go and see some other examples of comparison. So in The Tempest, Prospero can be seen as a metaphorical theatre director who stages all events on the island to create the result that he is looking as on the platform of a playhouse. He moves characters around, rearranges groups, creates special effects, and even appears at the end to engage with the audience. Now, he's a metaphorical theatre director. The metaphor is not so obvious, in my opinion, until you've read Hag-Seed. Hag-Seed's giving you that new light. It's shining new contemporary perspective on Shakespeare's original play. That's intertextuality. You get new meaning by viewing The Tempest through the modern day contextual lens of Hag-Seed. If you can also say that in a response, I'm sure you'll get some bonus points. So in Hag-Seed, Felix is a literal theatre director. Literal, not metaphorical. It's through that literal transformation from the metaphor that we're able to better access that understanding. If I didn't see him as a literal theatre director, I might not have realized that Prospero back on the play was actually staging a play. It wasn't so obvious because it was metaphor. So we get that new perspective. Demonstrating Atwood's attempt to ground Shakespeare's play in realism. Realism is so key. Consider how so much of the play, Shakespeare's play, is grounded in magic realism. It's got so much fantasy and supernatural in it that we can't believe it fully to be real life. But when we go to that prose fiction narrative that Atwood creates, it's so real. And the way she does that is she moves things that are largely metaphorical into very literal things. Consider this next point, which is extremely important. I hope I cover this other one. I do want to actually mention it before. A point that's not covered on the next two, on this metaphor to literal, think about how the island that Prospero is exiled to represents a prison. What do we see happen in Atwood's text? An actual prison emerges where Felix goes to work and he has to resolve through his issues there. It's by producing that play at the prison, just like Prospero did at his metaphorical prison of the island, that they both work through their issues and grow. That's important as a contrast or comparison. So, Tempest. Prospero's art is his magic. He has an actual art of magic. Felix's art is as a theatre director. There's the transformation. They both are artistic. Atwood hasn't let the artistic nature of Prospero's character go. She's just transformed the way it manifests. Understanding Felix as a theatre director is going to make him easier to empathize with for a modern day, more secular audience. Whereas if he was a magician, where we don't really value magic in the same way as an Elizabethan audience, we might not connect with his character as much. She wants to humanize his character because she wants us to give him the benefit of the doubt. She wants us to connect with him, just like any author would want their audience to potentially connect with the protagonist. Okay, and lastly, let's think about the solitude. They actually both live in solitude for 12 years. There are some very explicit connections between the stories. But with the Tempest, Prospero is ready for vengeance as we commence the play. In Hag-Seed, Felix only goes on to live in solitude after we've already been introduced to the narrative. It doesn't happen straight away. Remember, we have that element that's new to the plot, that we don't see, that's only implied in the Tempest, which is that in Hag-Seed, Felix's daughter has actually died. That didn't happen in the Tempest, and we actually see him get betrayed by the head of the production company who he was working for as a theatre director, which meant he didn't get to perform his dream play, no doubt, the Tempest. And then he goes on to be exiled for 12 years. So we've already got the opening of that narrative, that new opening in the narrative here that wasn't there in the Tempest, and that's going to allow us to more deeply connect with his character and understand things that we might not have otherwise if we were just dependent on the play. All right, guys, I hope that helps. There's a few nice comparisons, some really good points in that video. Please try and actually use some of this material in your responses. That's why we're producing this. I want to help you get the marks. So please repeat this. If you didn't take it all in the one go, take notes on what I'm saying. Use the exact language that I'm riffing out, because that's the stuff that gets you the marks, and people don't seem to get that. They'll listen to it. They'll say, yeah. Write it down. Write the exact sentences. Transcribe. I have got all the transcriptions in our resources, but you need to be doing that if you want to actually have that sophisticated Band 6 language. All right, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Comment if you've got any questions. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching once again. If you are enjoying our content, and we hope you are, please do like and subscribe to our channel, and of course, share with your friends.
That's right, guys, thanks for watching, but please do make sure you check out our very special resources. They're quite unique. We've made a whole bunch of state rank practical guides for all your English texts out there. So check out the link now at ignitehsc.com.au. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next video.